Days like today, I wonder why I even bother going into the shop. I got 3 dogs in today, 3 DAT recorders from the same client, all with different problems. We're going to look at them and see whether any of them can be repaired. I'm not holding my breath on this. Let's take a look and see what I got first. Okay, this time I got a Tascam DAT portable in. This one here, the complaint on this is it comes up and says T-cut. That's what apparently happens. This is one of the few portable machines that I actually like working on because they're well laid out and easy to work on compared to some of the others. So I think I'm going to have to let this one play for a bit and see what happens. I don't know, I guess I'll put a longer tape on that's longer than the normal ones I use for testing, just so I can let it play. So I won't be able to play this music, but we'll let this thing run and see how long it goes. Maybe this one here, it's just a 60-minute tape. Tape's got lots of dropouts on it. So I'm going to have to let this thing run for a bit and see what happens and see if we can spot exactly what's occurring on it. According to the note that came in with it, it says, plays but may suddenly stop and display T-cut, which translates into defective tape. The tape is not defective. Must be the transport. So we'll see. We'll see what this one does. I guess it's just a wait and see and see whether this one here faults. So I don't know whether the problem on this is going to be a mechanical problem or it could be an electrical problem, I guess, as well. But okay, so I'm just going to observe to see whether the tape reels stop turning. T-cut typically indicates that the tape has been cut. So how that determines that is if, for example, one reel stops turning and the other one continues. For example, if the tape were to get damaged, if it was to get cut, the supply spool would stop turning. The take-up spool would continue to turn when you're in play because the tape is no longer being pulled off the spool. That would typically result in a message like that. If both reels were to stop at the same time, obviously the machine would know that the tape is jammed and it would just shut down. But it's hard to say what the fault might be on this one. It could be a number of things. It could be a bad sensor. It could be a component that's going bad. These machines are getting pretty old now, and unfortunately, a lot of them are reaching their end of useful life. And as much as the DAT enthusiasts don't like to hear this, DAT machines are very, very similar to a VCR. Like a VCR, they use a spinning head, be it much smaller, and that the head is only wrapped 90 degrees around the head drum instead of 180 degrees. They still use a spinning head, and the head has a limited lifetime. In the case of a DAT machine, it's spinning at 2,000 RPM for the SP speed, and 1,000 RPM if you use the LP speed during record, but on playback, it's spinning at 2,000 RPM as well. It's the way it was. They read the data back basically at double the speed and buffered it. But nevertheless, it's mechanical. They like a VCR, they're mechanical, and anything can break on them. You can have alignment problems, you can have the heads that wear out, you can have the head drum that the motor seizes up, the bearing seizes up because they're mechanical. These things were built 20 plus years ago and they're starting to wear out, and people that use them still excessively, they're going to wear out faster. You know, I've made this advice before, and I'll say it again for people that are using this old technology. If you've got anything important on tape, regardless whether it's cassette or reel-to-reel or DAT or any other format. It's time to get that material, if it's a one-only recording, to get that material off of DAT or cassette or reel-to-reel and get it onto a digital format, because the tapes are wearing out, the machines are wearing out, there's no parts available to fix them when they do wear out. And yes, you can have a dozen DAT machines, but eventually they're going to wear out, and the more you use them, the more they're going to wear out. This is one of these ones that the rubberized coating has all gotten tacky on these machines. I have one similar to this, but again, I don't use it. I have a couple of DA40s. I use one occasionally, and the other one is just my backup, and I got a couple of Sony decks as well that just sit unused. It's something that I have just for playing back the odd tape that I get, but it's not something that I use on a regular basis. I probably should use it more, because I'm sure the next time I fire up one of my Sony decks, it won't work. Worked the last time I used it, but I bet it won't work now because it's been sitting for several months without being turned on. Like a lot of the equipment around here, there's a lot of stuff that I've got that I just don't use. DVD players, CD players I use occasionally. My turntable probably hasn't been turned on in 6 months, maybe longer. All this equipment deteriorates from disuse as well. This one's, so you can see, I'm going for a little while now. I'll just continue to monitor it and let it play and see if it'll fault. 49 minutes in, this one's still working. I'll leave it run for a bit, but might have been a problem with this tape. Could have been a reel sticking on the tape, but it's certainly not faulting here. I'll run a few more tapes through this one before writing it off as a no fault found, but this is a great way to waste a bunch of time, because while this thing's sitting on the bench, I could be fixing something else. I hate no fault found problems.
And while this is under test, I actually fixed that lamp I had yesterday.
Well, this has played the tape through twice, beginning to end, so I'm going to continue to test it, but I don't think there's anything wrong with this one.
Drove to the store, picked up a new lamp socket, and rewired it, and that lamp that you saw in the last video works great. Oh, well, this one was under test.
We'll move on. This time I have a Sony TCD10. This one here apparently is completely dead. We'll measure the power supply, make sure it's putting out voltage before tearing into this one here.
I'll start out by saying this is one of my least favorite DAT machines that I've ever worked on, and I really don't like these ones at all. They're very hard to work on.
8 volts is what the adapter is putting out, which is correct. It's an 8.4 volt adapter, 8.5 volts, and you see it's putting out 8.4 something. 8.47, close enough to 8.5 for me. What about the contacts in the back here?
And once I get into it, you'll understand exactly why I dislike these machines.
Slides in the back, and there should be some contacts in the back here that it makes a connection with.
To service them, you require special jigs.
The bottom there.
As it's impossible to open it up.
And it's totally dead. No power whatsoever on this one. So I guess we got to pull this one apart and see why it's not working.
I will tell you, I figured out why it's not turning on, but
Start by taking the bottom off of it.
this one has lots of problems. I'll also let you in on something else while I'm doing this. I've got something coming in that I've picked up. I've struck a deal with a guy to buy a very special camera, and I'll show it off. I don't know whether it works or not, but I was able to pick it up for, I think, a pretty good price. I didn't pay a lot for it. I have to actually pick it up later tonight, and I think it's going to impress a few people because it's a pretty big unit, and when it was new, it was around 12,000 bucks. And basically, I found it on Facebook, and he had marked it down a few times, but it was still more money than I wanted to pay for it. So a little over a week ago, I just kind of made an offer. I could have probably made a lower price offer and even got it cheaper, but I made him an offer. And then I noticed that he changed the price. He lowered it a little more, and it got it closer to where I had made the offer. And I just kind of said, I sent him a second message saying interested, and he comes back and says, I'll take your offer. He says, I'm moving. I got to get rid of this thing. So I think you guys will be impressed with it. I'm not going to tell you what it is until you see it, because I don't know when the video is going to come up, but it should come up pretty quick. But this is impressive. This is really impressive. It's one that I used a couple times years ago. I never bought one because I was shooting in Betacam and I was shooting in professional high 8. But this thing still was impressive. And I used one a couple times when I was out on a shoot with other photographers. It's big, it's heavy, it looked great at the time, but it just looks nice. And I got the whole shooting match. Case, power supply, a whole bunch of accessories with it. So I'm excited to be picking that up a little bit later on this evening. Got to drive over and pick it up in a couple of hours, and we'll take a look at that on an upcoming video, and we'll do some test recording on it if it works. If it doesn't, then we've got something to fix. He's already told me the batteries are no good, so don't know what the shape of the camera is, but I think you guys will be impressed, because it's kind of a neat machine.
Fuses on this unit. There's one fuse right here.
It's actually a modular type unit.
I don't really know much about these units. I've never really worked on them much. Fuse is not blown.
So people in the broadcast circles know what that is, but it's basically, you could configure it to several different configurations.
Let's check and see if there's power getting to the fuse. So get the meter on here. Power's plugged in. Here's the fuse, 8.47 volts. So the fuse is, well, we know the fuse isn't blown, but we know it's getting power. And let's see if the thing will turn on. See, nothing. No display. No, nothing here. Oh. This hold switch seems to be, it's not, is it in hold? I think it might be in hold. I think the switch is maybe, let's just see here if I can, this should be switching to hold and back. I wonder if it's in the hold mode and the button cover has come off. Can I lift this up? Pry this up a bit.
Okay, right now I'm thinking this thing's been dropped.
I think maybe the hold button is in the wrong position. Let's see if I can pry this up a bit. Just to, there. Okay, now let's click it. Okay. Now the switch clicks. Oh, I got power. The hold switch was in the hold position. Far out. I got power. Okay. Whew. I'm glad that was something simple like that, because these machines here could be a real pain in the ass to work on. Let's just see if it plays. I'll grab a source here, amplifier, and we'll plug it in to the line out. And I'll grab a DAT tape and see if it works. It's not working. The take-up spool is not turning. Why is the take-up spool not turning? According to this, it's got moisture in it. Yeah, right. Sure it does. I'm pretty sure the writing's on the wall on this one. Take a look down here. There's a guidepost that's missing, and look at the pinch roller. The pinch roller is not even connected. Something is broken in the mechanism. That's why when I tried to put a tape in, it ate my tape. Destroyed one of my dwindling tapes. How bad did it make my tape? That's how bad it ripped the tape in two. And then I took a closer look, and I should have inspected this before. I don't know if this unit's been dropped or what's happened with it or where it came from, but that is not supposed to be loose like that. And where is the tape guide? There's one there. The other one is completely missing. I don't hear it rattling around inside, so I don't know what's going on with this one, but I'm going to just wash my hands of this unit right now, because this one here is definitely, in my opinion, not worth fixing. I don't think any of these D10s are worth fixing to begin with, because they're just not an easy machine to work on. The way Sony built these goddamn things with all these little ribbon cables that there's no room to move. Like, there's no room. Well, all the Sony DAT machines, all the small ones. This was large by comparison, but it also had 4 motors in it instead of 2. So it had a lot more circuitry for those direct drive motors, which is another headache in itself. Just like the VCRs that had direct drive tape spindle motors, they always had more problems than ones that used a single motor or used a belt drive. That was just a lot simpler. There's a lot of ribbon cables in here that there's just no room to remove them. Even when you remove the front panel, the front board, there's still no room to unplug any of these things. Like, they've got like millimeters of space to unplug them, and that becomes a problem, because you can't operate the machine with the board out unless you have the extension cables, which only Sony had. Back in the day when I was working on equipment like this, if one of these walked in the front door, it would have been sent to Sony and they could deal with it. I wouldn't have even attempted to do it. Not for what Sony would pay for warranty work. There's no way in hell that I would have worked on one. But this one here, I'm going to send this one back, because there's just, at this point, I see there's just way too much wrong with it. There's parts missing, and I just don't want to work on it. That's what it boils down to. For what I could charge to fix this thing, I'd be losing money, because the amount of time one could spend on one of these things is, hours and hours and hours and hours. Now, the audio collectors out there are going to say, yeah, but these are rare because they don't make them anymore. Oh, well, they might be rare because they don't make them anymore, but they're not worth spending a ton of money on to try to get them and keep them running. They were a mechanical nightmare when they were new, and they haven't gotten any better with age. And just the fact that these ones were portable units, so they were taken out in the field a lot and beat on and bashed around and so forth, it just decreased the reliability. Any of the portable DATs were not all that reliable, just because of how they were operated. They were carried around and bumped around and banged around while they were being used out in the field. Anyway, I'm going to throw this one together and let the fellow know that owns this one that it's just not worth repairing at this point. Parts are missing. This time I've got a Casio. Almost looks like a Sony. Anyway, this is another DAT machine. This one here, apparently, when it's playing, if he moves it around, it stops. I wonder if the power cord's damaged. What do you think? You think maybe the power's cutting out, and that's why it's stopping? Well, let's find out. I'm sure this is a Sony, because Sony use these yellow connectors as well. I mean, it looks like a TCD10. Maybe it's not, but it looks similar. All right, power. No, it's not the same. Transport looks a little bit different. I'll have to put some headphones or something on here to hear it. Let me just grab an adapter so that I can plug this in and see if I've got sound. This unit has no audio output either from the the headphone output or the line output, as he said in this complaint that there's no sound. We can see sound showing up here on the meter, so I know that the unit is playing, but there's no sound on the output. Also, the fact that this thing here, the cabinet, looks like it's got a big dent on it, and the top cover here is not seated properly, so I have a sneaking suspicion that this unit probably has been dropped. Plus the fact that there's a big dent here in the bottom, and that's not going to be why it doesn't have sound, but it might be why there is no sound, because there may be a broken circuit board below here. Another waste of time I can see. 3 units shipped in from the same fella, and one of them was working, and the other one, well, the Sony, it's I think beyond repair, and this one here could very well be also beyond repair. But we'll open it up and see whether there's anything that can be done on this one. These units all used high density circuit boards in them, so it's not just a double-sided, it's a multi-layer board, so I hope it's not something that's damaged. Don't see the board, doesn't appear to be broken. The dent on the bottom wouldn't do anything anyway because there's an insulator on here, so even if the dent was pushing up against the board, it wouldn't short anything out, but the board itself may be compromised.
However, that screw that we just saw that was lying on the board, trapped between the bottom and the board, it certainly could have done damage. It could have shorted something out. I didn't notice that when I was working on it, when I first tipped it over. I did see the screw lying on the bench later, and I wondered where the hell that screw came from. Obviously, it came out of this unit, and it was lying between the board and the back. So there may be where the fault is. There could be a component that's been shorted out and blown on this one.
Of course, the concern on anything that may have been dropped is damage to the board. That's always the biggest concern. That power adapter looks like something that's somebody's tried to fix with some tape. I'm sure they've spliced the wires together under there. What we do know is that there's audio coming up on the meter, so it is reading the tape. That part works. You can see the audio showing up there. And I'll put my scope on here and see if I can see where the audio might be missing. There's our D to A converter right here. These are going to be op amps over here, I'm sure. Get the scope going and see if I can see any audio anywhere in the analog circuits. I have signal going into that IC. I don't know what, I don't have any pinout or anything for it. I've looked it up. It's a 1094B. I can't find any info on that when I googled it, but I do have data, like I do have audio going in on one pin. These are the different pins: pin 1, pin 2, pin 3, pin 4, pin 5 has got nothing, pin 6 has got nothing. Pin 7 has, looks like audio on pin 7. And pin 8 looks like it'd be a power rail. So I got audio on it. I got audio there. That's pin 7. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and pin 1. It's got audio. So there's audio there, and there's audio there. So it looks like it's got audio going into it, into both. There's pin 7 of the other one. There's pin 1. So I got audio going in and out of these ICs. Of course, we're looking at these two here. So pin 1 here has audio, and pin 7 over here has audio. I have nothing over here on the volume control, nothing at all. And I have nothing here on the line output. So I don't know how it gets from one to the other, because this will be a multi-layer board, I'm sure. On this, it won't just be a double layer, it'll be a multi-layer board. But I haven't pulled the board to see if there's anything missing on the bottom side or anything. Maybe parts have been knocked off of it, but certainly we have audio coming out of the DAC. But we don't have any audio getting to the output. And these chips here appear to be working, because I got a signal going into an input and an output, but I don't know which one the output is. I'm assuming that pin 1 is the input, but maybe pin 1's the output. Goes through the board to the other side here. If we scope the DAC chip here, I'll see audio, I'm sure, on a couple pins here. I got audio there. Yeah. Actually, you know what? There is sound. It's just very, very, very low. I just cranked all the way up and I got my amp turned up. So there is sound on both the line output and the headphone output, but the sound is very, very low. Interesting. Okay, well, we've learned something. Let's see why it's low. I don't know if I can, but we'll try to figure this one out. I think this is another one I may have to wash my hands on. I mean, I've got audio, but the level is really low. I have to crank that amplifier up quite loud to hear anything. So this is much lower, and you hear nothing with headphones. And that's as far as I'm going to go on this one. So I'm going to throw it together and let the fellow know that owns it that this one here is also not going to be economical to repair. The fellow that owns this collects DAT machines, and he buys a lot of them off of eBay, so it may very well have been one that he bought that wasn't working when he bought it, and he's just trying to get it to run. But unfortunately, a lot of these units are beyond repair, because they're just so old you can't get any parts for them or any service data. So it's one thing if it's something simple, but in this case, that's not going to be the case. Make sense? Some days I just wonder why I bother, and today is one of those days. I've spent the entire day on these 3 DAT machines. One of them I ran for 3 hours, and it didn't fault during the 3-hour run. I ran a tape through it 3 times. Didn't fault during that entire tape run. And then, of course, the Sony one was mechanism falling apart with pieces missing. This one's stuck in mute. Yeah, sometimes I wonder. Certainly don't make any money on stuff like this. Anyway, thanks for watching.